On this still life example, I'm going to be working on a shading with ink. I'm going to use crosshatching, but first what I plan to do is I plan to put in with pencil just a quick idea or mapping of my placement of my object and its cast shadow. This will allow me to make sure that the size is correct and the relationship and proportions of each part of this cube-like container are accurate. So I'm going in with pencil and I'm just making in that general shape. Then I decided to go back, get some details on curves, nicks, bumps, those types of things that I'm seeing in the actual object. I'm going to have to spend a little bit more time getting the details on the lid because it's got this three-dimensional almost sphere that starts to pop out of it. So I'm going to need to spend time on getting those curves right. I'm drawing very, very lightly because I know that I will end up erasing all of these pencil lines later. So I'm just trying to map in what really needs to be done because the bulk of the work will be done with my ink. Especially when working with ink, it is really good to have your value scales nearby to help you figure out what values you want to achieve. For this, I decided to use a ballpoint pen. I started putting in my cross-hatching lines. Although some of these little tiny lines look like they're outlines, they're actually just very small little X's that cross over one another. I'm also looking for subtle changes when I work on a side. Notice on the front, I added some little shadows or places where the glaze was different than on the other areas. Then when I worked on the second side, I knew that the entire side of this cube is going to be drastically darker than the one I started with. So I'm trying to kind of play in my head what's big, what's middle, what's light. As I worked on the top, I knew I had to slow down and really get this right because I have a texture that I'm trying to achieve on here. I'm even going to try and find a way to show that shading is almost spherical at the top because it's pushed upwards from the inside of that cube as if the lid were open. My cast shadow is definitely going to be the darkest thing that I have. But even within my cast shadow, it is not just one value the entire time. So it's great for us to understand how while I am drawing with my ink, and although I'm doing tiny little X's and crossed lines, I'm still breaking this drawing down into dark values, light values, and medium values. But I never outline. You do not see me just take my ink pen and just create this big black border around everything. Using a value that sits in contrast with another value will tell your viewer where something starts or stops, not an outline.